welcome to International Hawaii on ThinkTech, where we showcase local important export companies and the trade industry. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki, and today we're chatting with Jimmy Chan of Hawaiian Chip Company. Hi, Jimmy. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks for having me
Yay.
on.
Just in case people have been living under a rock since you started your company, maybe give us a little brief explanation about Hawaiian Chip Company.
Yeah, so actually, we've been in business for 20 years, but there's still tons of people who've never heard of the Hawaiian Chip Company, and it's a company I started 20 years ago to make sweet potato chips using the purple Okinawan sweet potatoes that are grown here in the islands. Started selling those at the farmers markets, swap meets, wherever they'd let me set up and sell in Ziploc bags. And from there, it kind of grew, and we started making taro chips at some point. And then, now, so that's probably what we're best known for, our taro chips and sweet potato chips, which are now distributed statewide in stores. And then now recently we've started doing potato chips.
I saw that. And the party mix. That looks new too.
Yep. So we're adding. So right now we're at a different point where the first 10 years was about growing our wholesale distribution and trying to expand to the mainland or expand internationally. The last 5 years, the focus has really been on just trying to expand our retail sales direct to customers at our factory. Which those sales support all our wholesale accounts because it provides a memorable experience for customers. So when they come down to the factory and have the opportunity to eat the chips hot and fresh, you remember that, and then don't hesitate to buy a bag at whether it be Costco, Club Foodland, or KTA.
That's awesome. How is the foot traffic during the day at your storefront?
So, it started out with the goal of being, just $50 a day in revenue. That was, maybe seven or 8 years ago, and we used to get maybe anywhere between 0 to 5 customers a day. Right now, we average, I think we average about 75 customers a day. So
That's
it's grown
awesome.
significantly, and we're actually putting in the infrastructure to be able to support more traffic.
That's great. That is awesome. I was going to ask you, I know you use local produce for your products. How did you find your suppliers? Like, how do you find farmers that'll supply you?
It's kind of funny because my initial contacts came through my girlfriend at the time when I was starting the company. She's my wife now, so you know, her father was a produce buyer at at actually KTA on the Big Island. I grew up in Hilo, and he set me up with the distributors and whatnot, and then from there it kind of just grew to the point where they started seeking us out, as we became more visible in the markets, saying, hey, listen, we've got potatoes, can we drop off samples, etc. And it's always an ongoing process because farmers change, situations change, even just what farmers are willing to grow changes. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, and I would think taro is not an easy.
The taro is it's a
to grow. I don't know if it's a vegetable
to grow locally. It's a long crop. It takes about 8 months. Locally, the easiest return you get from taro, we use the Chinese taro. It's the dryland taro. Actually, and that's the taro leaves that you use for luau leaf, lau. But the moment you start taking the leaves for that, it stunts the growth of the corns. And if it's not big enough, it doesn't meet our production specs, and we can't use it.
So they either have to do the leaves or the taro.
That's kind of been my experience. And it's tough to convince guys that you got to wait 8 months for a return, and with the
That's
cost,
true.
it's a labor intensive crop. So with cost of labor on constantly on the rise, it's getting tougher and tougher to do.
That's tough. And then what is your, so I'm trying to help people new to the industry, like either importing or exporting. Like, what does your supply chain look like? Like, I guess if you're wholesaling, how does your product come in and go out and get to its final destination?
Um, well, I mean, we pretty much, the only thing we don't do is farming. So we basically, once we secure the raw materials, the raw potatoes, taro,
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. We'll store it. We can store for anywhere between a couple of days to up to a month sometimes, depending on how fresh the product is when we get it. And you know, and that's why it's important to have good relationships with your suppliers to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
they don't send you the pallet that left over from a container that got shipped out 4 weeks ago. So with that, from storage, on average, we don't keep our raw materials for more than generally a couple of weeks. That's
Mm-hmm.
a lot for us. And then from there we do the complete process of prep, which is washing, hand peeling by hand,
Wow.
and slicing, which is a machine, but there's still a person feeding the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Frying, which is done in small batches, and then even the seasoning, it's all done by hand, and then the bagging is not even an automated process either. It's basically a simple scale that weighs the product, and then someone hits a trigger once we hit the right product spec, and then it drops into a preformed bag,
Mm-hmm.
put through a sealer, and then from there it flows into a metal detector. And then from there, somebody
Wow.
picks it up, packs it in a box. So all over, it's a labor intensive process. So, and it's all done in at the same time. So we have probably anywhere between
Mm.
six to eight people processing at a time,
Wow.
and then
And
from there it gets stored and then shipped out generally within a week.
wow. And then is it part of your team that actually trucks it out to retailers or distributors?
It's a little both. If it's a smaller account, we generally ship it ourselves and drop it off,
Mm.
or mail direct. We've
Hmm.
With COVID, we've seen a pretty significant increase in our online sales.
Mm.
And then we also do rely on distributors for larger chains like Safeway, Time,
Costco.
Costco, yep, all that stuff, and also even for the hotels and restaurants, we're heavily reliant on distributors.
Mm. Hmm. Interesting. Then do the distributors actually come to your warehouse and pick it up?
Some will, but for the most part, we actually will drop off the shipments, just because logistically our warehouses are small and
Oh.
parking is tight. So because we
Mm.
have a retail operation on site,
Hmm.
the big delivery trucks come in and block off our retail customers. That doesn't really go too well.
Hmm.
So it's better for us to control when the shipments go out, and then at least that
Hmm.
way we're just making one drop versus a drop at a chain of 12 to 15 stores.
Hmm. Hmm. Huh. Interesting. And then how do you, what was your most effective way to find your new buyers? Like, how do you set up all these accounts?
So for us, it was a lot of word of mouth, and
Mm.
even just trade shows. Like there's a series of Douglas buying shows that would help
Mm,
sell.
mm-hmm.
The Made in Hawaii festival was always a big one where we see buyers from stores. Um, just setting up at random craft fairs, farmers markets, just catching people as they come by and they're like, "Hey, I got a store. Can you sell me product?" And
Huh.
so it would have been the last year would have been really tough to build a business,
Yeah.
you know, but it's that was kind of the biggest thing. And at this point now we more or less we're not looking to, well, I mean, there's not a lot more stores that we can really hit in Hawaii. Um, so I think it's more about, we've hit the point where we're just maintaining relationships and, on occasion introducing new product to the buyers at these.
Mm. But there's a lot of in-person events.
Yep, those are
Mm,
absolutely key. Because a lot
mm,
of times the relationship starts with the buyers and the decision makers, and can take, up to a year to culminate in any sales whatsoever.
mm. Wow. And then are you starting to export like to different countries or how's that going?
So we're open to export. You know, our retail store was actually designed to appease, or to appeal to Japanese customers.
Mm,
They're less than 2% of our business. We're talking pre-COVID. So, but
huh.
it does resonate, and eventually, once we get out of this, I think that is one of the targets that we're going to try and hit. And
Hmm.
I had been trying to export for about 10 years,
Wow.
going to shows in Japan, and we do a fair we do a small amount of business, and it's actually grown in the pandemic a little bit.
Hmm.
I guess people do miss Hawaii, so
Hmm.
it's growing, but it's, to me, I think a company my size, we're still better off just trying to maximize sales and revenue to tourists while they're here. So
Hmm.
export in that sense, and
Hmm.
then grow that base until we're able to sustain export and, recognition outside of Hawaii. Because like I said, even in Hawaii, right, we're still
Mm, not
building
everybody.
the brand and this and that. So you show up in a city like Tokyo with a population of over 10 million, and really you're really nobody. So
That's
it's,
true.
it's,
That's tough.
it's
Huh.
but it's just like in Hawaii. It's identifying our niche market. We're not competing directly with the likes of Frito-Lay and whatnot here, and we'll
Hmm.
do the same up there and just be strategic in how we position ourselves in the market as a authentic, made in Hawaii product. And
Yeah.
there are consumers that do value that.
Definitely. Especially in Japan, I think.
Yep.
Do you import anything? I mean, I know you get a lot of your produce locally, but is there anything that you import? Like your packaging or boxes
Yeah.
or
So our bags
yeah.
are the bags, a lot of that we use a couple of different suppliers. One is on the U.S. mainland, but another, we do bring in stuff from China,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's been a interesting process. Things have been delayed, and even some of our bottles for our sauces, we have line of Kilauea fire sauces and
Hmm.
whatnot. Um, some of those I think were imported, but mostly I refuse to work directly with foreign uh, companies and handle all that import. So I work with a local distributor, or a distributor in Hawaii, or at least a distributor in the U.S. that I
Hmm.
can hold accountable for the shipments and whatnot.
Yeah, that's
It
good.
saves me headache of trying to, get
Yeah.
stuff lost in translation and whatnot.
hmm That's like a whole nother process to
Yep,
try and bring things in.
exactly. And even with the export stuff, it wouldn't be possible without having a good a good contact in Japan who's
hmm
gonna handle all the documents and this and that. And
hmm
that in itself is a job. It's
hmm
get a little crazy.
That's true. That's true. We're going to take a quick break. This is International Hawaii, and I'm talking to Jimmy Chan of Hawaiian Chip Company, and we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to International Hawaii on ThinkTech. My guest today is Jimmy Chan of Hawaiian Chip Company, and we're talking about all of his awesome made in Hawaii products. Do you have any new products that you want to announce or talk about? I've seen a couple on your site. Exciting.
Yeah, so we do some party mix now. We acquired the building next door to us
Oh,
to
wow.
base and happen to have a bakery already put in. So and actually we'll use other kitchens too with some friends in the industry for bigger volume runs
Wow.
and but so basically we started doing party mix and I talked about the craft fairs and the trade shows earlier.
hmm
One of the dear friends that I made was this lady Audrey Mihira, and she actually made this party mix and shortbread cookies under the name All Butter Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Her whole thing was all butter. Everything was just all butter, margarine, and their cookies and stuff were wonderful. And luckily, we were able to figure out a way for us to continue making them after she had decided to retire. And
Oh.
so we started making the party mix just because it was a little simpler to learn. And we the I think the teaching and the handover process did get derailed by COVID. It was one of
Mm.
um, but we're looking to get back in and try to make those cookies probably by end of the year, if not early next. But the spin that we put on the party mix was adding our taro chips into it.
hmm
So we took the exact recipe and just added our taro chips to make a nice crunchy snack. Um,
Yeah, that looks so good.
so and we've started to launch other, versions of the party mix, the more traditional style without the taro chips and whatnot. And
Oh.
yeah, and then one of the other things that we're doing is we're we're also making potato chips, like just
Mm.
regular kettle style potato chips.
hmm
We have a Maui onion flavor that's it's really tasty. It's doing really well.
Ooh.
And then just the originals, can't go wrong with the originals. And
hmm
barbecue, it does okay, but we're probably going to replace it shortly with nori, um, just
oh.
great Japanese nori. And
Mm.
but again, another import. That's another product that we import. Um, but
Oh, the noti.
supply did get disrupted severely with
Oh,
we, so we've been cut off from our supply for over a year now. For about over a year, we just got our first shipment about 3 weeks ago.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeesh. Hmm. And I noticed you also have a line called Holly's Choice too. Are you going to continue that? And what is, if you can let us know what that is?
Yeah, so that's kind of a private label project that we kind of started on um, about I think about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. My daughter Holly was
Mhm.
diagnosed with a severe genetic disorder called Rett syndrome, and what it is that really uh, it's it's it severely affects uh, children in that they lose the ability to speak. So it's
Wow.
uh, so they'll lose the ability to speak. They'll lose
Hmm.
the ability to have purposeful use of their hands.
Wow.
Many can't walk. A lot are on feeding tubes. It's really tough, and luckily for my daughter and my
Hmm.
family, she's still able to walk. Recently, she started suffering seizures, but we're trying to get that under control.
Ooh.
Can actually talk. She has a very limited vocabulary, but she can say the important words: "Mom, Dad, hungry." You know, and but we just thought, like any parent, you do anything for
Mm-hmm.
your kids to help your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just happened to have a chip company, and so we thought, wow, well, what if we just help raise awareness? That's the goal, to just raise,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a disorder on a single chromosome, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that technology is just so close to fixing, and also to raise money for it, and
Mm-hmm. That's
we
awesome.
successfully raised over $30,000 with a bigger portion of the sales on those products going to help fund Rett syndrome research and
Mm.
help others with disabilities. So it's one of those. We hope that it some progress will be made in time
Mhm.
to help Holly.
Yeah.
If not, then helping others is the legacy.
Mhm.
Believe, then that's not entirely a bad thing either.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is a great cause and a campaign. Um, I wanted to ask you also, as far as a pandemic, how did it affect your business, and how did you have to change?
Whew. I mean, it was- it's everything's just been turned upside down and around, and we're not even
Mhm.
severely affected businesses. I mean,
Mm.
and it was crazy because we were down over 60% in sales
Wow.
in the first shutdown. Um, as the local economy started to open back up and whatnot, we were able to recover and rebound and have a
Mhm.
relatively strong Christmas. Online sales increased,
Oh, good.
and actually the traffic to our retail store increased because people weren't traveling, and
Hmm.
were coming in to ship stuff off to friends on the mainland and this and that, and just exploring different things in Hawaii, because it's like, oh well,
Yeah.
time. We heard that you can come down and get fresh made taro chips, and but even that was a challenge because we have a really tiny store that's
Mm.
maybe 10 by 20 feet, and with the social distance limitations, we can only fit two or three customers in there at
Mhm.
a time, and you know, eh, otherwise the option is to wait out in the hot sun, and but again, luckily we've got a really, really, really uh, committed local following that's just been, patient and supportive on every step of the way, with how we made the adjustments.
Hmm.
Mentioned that we serve the chips fresh there, so they basically come right off the production line. You get them in a like a cake box or a paper bag, and from there, customers used to be able to season them themselves. And
Hmm.
we had shakers out, and it was kind of a fun thing. You taste it as you flavors and whatnot. And we had to shut all that down, and now we just give, if you tell us what seasoning you want, we'll give you a couple of packets, and it's
Mm,
a little bit of a different experience.
mm,
But again, it's just a matter of making those adjustments, and
mhm,
even even just work wise. I mean, setting up protective barriers, shields, wearing face masks, and I mean, you know, you
mm,
your voice is already muffled. Then you add a face shield.
yeah.
Plenty of our close contact areas where, you know, it's just a little crazy. So communication has been
Mm.
internally. So a lot more hand signals. Most of them friendly.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, I'm glad you guys are still busy and keeping things going. I definitely want to stop by and get some fresh chips. The taro chips are the best. That's my favorite.
That's the number one. That's the most popular item. A 1 pound box of taro chips.
Um, what advice would you give to a company just starting, like say a food manufacturer? I'll
don't
do it.
just go get a job. Go.
No.
Hey, don't do it. It's I'd say know your limitations, and work within those. I think one of the one of the things that challenges me the most, and I was thinking about that today when I ran over here after being on the production line all morning, and it's
Wow.
just like trying to understand that the tendency as an owner is to think you're the best employee, and oftentimes that gets in the way of actually letting employees do their jobs. So
Mm,
as
mm.
you grow, you gotta just kind of let things be, and and then acknowledge that, hey, you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah. Especially as you get bigger. I mean, there's so much more that has to get done.
Yep, yep. So I think just have lots of patience with
Mm.
yourself, patience with others, patience with the economy. You know,
And with yourself.
the list goes on.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. You've been watching International Hawaii on ThinkTech Hawaii. Today we've been chatting with Jimmy Chan of Hawaiian Chip Company. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, Jimmy. And thanks to all of our viewers for tuning in. I'm Cindy Matsuki, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of International Hawaii. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.